Hi. In my first video, I talked about how fear of COVID-19 is generating emotional responses, how to recognise anger as a fight response to that fear, and violence or depression as other possible outcomes. The amygdala, the caveman in our heads, doesn't always opt to attack the saber-toothed tiger with a spear though. Sometimes it tells us to run away, the flight response, or to stand very still and hope it doesn't notice us, the freeze response. So how do these translate to the current situation? Let's look at flight first. How might the conversation between the rational, downward a kid's prefrontal cortex and the amygdala go? Maybe something like this.
Virus scary. Run away.
Not as simple as that, I'm afraid, but we could hop in the car, leave this city where the virus is running rampant, and head to our holiday home or caravan where they have relatively few cases.
Good. Go now.
As far as the amygdala's goal of avoiding danger is concerned, this plan is pretty perfect. The PFC can't make a logical argument against it. Excellent. Run for the hills or the coast or the lakes or wherever. Don't worry about the blood pressure of those experiencing a fight response whose anger is ramping up. Survival of the fittest, right? It's hard to see a flaw in the flight response if all we're thinking about is ourselves. But, and it's a big but, a bit like mine, the reality is that by running away, what the city fleers are doing is increasing the chance of taking the virus with them to the small rural community of their choice. The amygdala is selfish. It doesn't care. And the PFC is so scared that it's following when it should be leading. If your instinct is to run, please don't. Your PFC knows that we all need each other to survive, that we've created an interdependent society in which we share responsibility for each other. Try to resist the flight response, stay at home and fight by following the government's advice, and then watch my first video about not letting that constructive fight response turn into a destructive anger or depression. The final response the amygdala may have to the fear of COVID-19 is to freeze. In this context, the PFC fails to impose sophisticated rationality on its primitive brainmate. Instead, it tweaks the amygdala's idea into something more workable but even less rational, the ostrich approach.
Virus scary. Me stand still, it not see me.
I like your thinking, but what if we stick our head in this bucket of sand? Now we can't see it, so it doesn't exist.
No virus. Good. We do.
We can see this response in the people who are still having social gatherings, going out for day trips, not making the effort to keep 6 feet away on the street. Believe it or not, they are probably the most frightened of all, and the least able to accept that fear is part of all of us, all the time. Maybe they believe they are in some way standing up to the virus, showing it how brave and not scared at all they are.
Oi, virus! No! You don't scare me! Come on over here if you think you're hard enough!
Breaking news. The virus doesn't care how brave you are. It is, however, really happy that you're providing an environment in which it can spread. Maybe the freezers think it's a conspiracy of governments around the world aimed at, I don't know, whatever. Or it's all been blown out of proportion and the threat's not that great. Thousands of people would have died worldwide anyway. It is totally fine to keep your fear at bay by believing such things, as long as you're doing it while social distancing. Regard it as hedging your bets. It's probably a conspiracy and or blown out of proportion, but just in case it's not, I'll stay at home and wash my hands a lot. These are the big flight and freeze responses that only refer to a minority. For most of us, these responses will occur on a smaller scale. The flight reaction tends to manifest as a need for escapism, some way to block out the PFC's anxious rumination over the unknown and the things we can't control. We all have a preferred way of shutting up our brains: music, TV, books, gaming, etc. If your freeze response is to deny the seriousness of the situation, it's unlikely that you will voluntarily comply with the restrictions of lockdown, and therefore conflict with other members of the household. Conflict, indeed, with other members of the household is a likely outcome. More commonly, our freeze response sees us burying our heads under the duvet, staring into space, or flitting aimlessly from one thing to another without being able to settle productively to anything. Just to keep us on our toes, we won't choose one of the three Fs and stick to it. We will move from fight to flight to freeze as our amygdala and prefrontal cortex try to find a solution to the fear. I know I have exhibited constructive fight these videos. Destructive fight, although my nearest and dearest would probably say they haven't noticed any difference, I'm always impatient and irritable. I've escaped into books, reading and writing them. There's no better escapism than writing, controlling a world of your own creation. And I've slept more. Yes, friends and family, that is possible. Hopefully, you now have enough information to recognise and understand your own fear responses, but that's not the end of it. No, that would be too easy. One of the biggest potentials for conflict comes when you and your fellow lockdownees are having different responses at different times. Imagine this scene, if you will. You are in fight mode and determined to make the most of this opportunity to spring clean and decorate the house, give the garden a makeover, learn a language, a musical instrument, and reach the peak of physical fitness, while your beloved is hovering between freeze and flight, either asleep or slumped on the settee, watching every episode of Last of the Summer Wine or Storage Hunters or A Question of Sport instead of helping you. How dare he! You are self-righteously furious. Now, imagine that you are the one sleeping and binge-watching box sets to keep your brain quiet, while the love of your life is bustling about, manically cleaning and tidying and changing things. Aren't things weird enough already without you moving all the furniture? Why don't you sit down? You're driving me mad. Help you? Are you crazy? Leave me alone. Again, I don't have a magic wand, but it will help if we can understand that we are all going on our own individual journeys through COVID-19. There is no right way to be during lockdown, no perfect solution to the fear we all feel. But if we can expect the right of those in our household to deal with fear differently from us and be kind to each other, then hopefully we can make it through this with our relationships intact, if not stronger. Thank you for listening to me, and don't forget to check out Andrew Wright's Neuro Ninja on YouTube or Dean Burnett's book The Idiot Brain if you want to delve more into how our brains work.